Assalamu alaikum. The Qur'an is so beautiful in how it creates word pictures for us. And one of the word pictures that I'm just discovering recently is in relationship to the word ar-riyah, what's often translated as the winds. But I'm finding as I read the Qur'an that the term ar-riyah perhaps is a word picture or a metaphor for the sending of the messengers. So let's look at a couple ayat. So in chapter 7, verse 57, he says, هُوَ الَّذِي يُرْسِلُ الرِّيَاحَ. He is the one who sends the winds, بُشْرًا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَحْمَتِهِ, as glad tidings, بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَحْمَتِهِ, before or between the two hands of his mercy. حَتَّى إِذَا أَقَلَّتْ سَحَابًا ثِقَالًا, until it brings about and develops a heavy cloud, سُقْنَاهُ لِبَلَدٍ مَيِّتٍ, we drive it to a dead land. فَأَنزَلْنَا بِهِ الْمَاءَ فَأَخْرَجْنَا بِهِ مِنْ كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ. So we send down the water by it, and we bring out by it مِنْ كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ, from all kinds of fruits. كَذَلِكَ نُخْرِجُ الْمَوْتَى. Likewise do we bring out the dead, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ, perhaps they may remember. Now, a lot of times when people interpret a verse like this, because it ends with كَذَلِكَ نُخْرِجُ الْمَوْتَى, likewise we bring out the dead, they take that to mean that it's just referring to like resurrection. But perhaps if we keep reading, this is actually a metaphor for the sending of the messengers, and how what the messengers bring gives life to our spirits, our souls, our minds, our emotions, brings us to life after spiritual death. So if we read the next verse, وَالْبَلَدُ الطَّيِّبُ يَخْرُجُ نَبَاتُهُ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ. The land that's tayyib or pure brings out its nabat, its growth, by the permission of its Lord. وَالَّذِي خَبُثَ لَا يَخْرُجُ إِلَّا نَكِدًا. And that which is khabutha, impure or filthy, it does not bring out anything except nakidan. And nakidan in Arabic means khuruju shay ila sahibihi bi shidda. It means for something to come out for a person with difficulty. So it doesn't say the land that's khabutha, that's impure or filthy, it doesn't say it doesn't bring anything out, but it says la yakhruju illa nakidan. What it does bring out comes out with great difficulty. But the land that's tayyib brings out its nabat, its growth, by the permission of its Lord. And I believe this is continuing the metaphor, and we're going to keep reading to see that it's talking about the sending of the winds and how it brings the clouds, and then it sends down the water, and this is how Allah brings the dead out, brings the dead, nukhrijul mauta, brings the dead out, like I said, bringing us to life spiritually, in mentally and emotionally, in all these different ways. So perhaps this verse is comparing people to these different kinds of lands. Al-baladu tayyib walladhi khabutha. So the pure land versus alladhi khabutha, the land that becomes impure or filthy, and how each of the lands interacts with the life-giving substance differently and produces different things. So al-baladu tayyib, the pure land, when it interacts with what ar-riyah brings, the clouds and the water and all these things, by the permission of its Lord, it produces growth. Walladhi khabutha, that which is filthy, it doesn't bring anything out except naked, which means bringing things out in a difficult way. And then he ends the verse by saying, كَذَلِكَ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمِ يَشْكُرُونَ. Likewise do we distribute the ayat, the signs and lessons, to people who are grateful or give thanks. So the way he ends this verse too, he's telling us he distributes the ayat for people who are grateful. So he's letting us know in what he's telling us is signs and lessons and ayat. We don't have to just take it literally, like he's literally just talking about wind and different kinds of land. This is a metaphor for spiritual development. And what happens in the very next verse? He says, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ. Truly, we sent Noah, to his people. So, in 7:57, he says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي يُرْسِلُ الرِّيَاحِ. He is the one that sends the winds. Then in 58, he talks about the lands, which represents the receptivity of people to what the winds bring, the rain and all those type of things. And then in 59, he says, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا. We have sent Noah. So is this random, this sequence of verses? I don't think so. I think starting with the winds before talking about sending Noah is to draw our attention that the sending of the messengers has something in common with the sending of the winds. What further supports this interpretation is if we go to chapter 30, verse 46, he says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, notice again, from his ayats. So these are his signs and lessons, something we're supposed to be learning from. And يُرْسِلَ الرِّيَاحَ مُبَشِّرَاتٍ وَلِيُذِيقَكُم مِّنْ رَحْمَتِهِ. So from his signs and lessons are that he sends the winds as givers of glad tidings, and so that they may taste of his mercy. And that's chapter 30, verse 46. What does he say in the very next verse? Chapter 30, verse 47. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ رُسُلًا. And truly we have sent before you messengers. So I think these verses show us that the word picture that is painted when Allah talks about ar-riyah in the Qur'an gives us a very vivid image of the sending of the messengers and how that is related to his mercy and related to glad tidings, and how that is even related to us and how we respond to the messages. And of course, that doesn't negate that the winds can symbolize other things, even the actual physical winds, right? There's so many different layers of meaning in the Quran, and that's why I wanted to share these observations, just to encourage us to think a little bit deeper about what we read. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.